Hi my lovelies and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sugar. I'm a registered nurse, a nurse coach, an entrepreneur, and a content creator amongst, I think that's like 4 out of a million things that I do. But if anything that I just mentioned interests you, make sure you're subscribed to my channel because I do make videos around all those 4 personalities of mine. And if you're an oldie but a goodie, welcome back. You know I love you. You're the reason why I keep coming back. Anyways, in today's video, I'm gonna be giving you tips on how to pass the NGN NCLEX. Now, in this video, I'm gonna be interchanging between NGN and Next Generation. If you're prepping for NCLEX, you probably know NGN means Next Generation NCLEX. So I wanna be giving you tips on how to pass the NGN on your first try and essential tips and resources. I do have my iPad here. You guys know it is a serious business whenever we have our iPad because that means we have a lot of things to talk about, and I do not want to miss out on any important tips or resources that I want to tell you guys. Like I literally did like a little bit of research, took my time to take this note, so forgive me if I look down once in a while just so I don't forget anything. By the way, I posted a video last week about everything you need to know about the Next Generation NCLEX. I mean everything. Things like why the Next Generation NCLEX changed, what changed, the new question format, what clinical judgment really means, everything that you need to know. The video is pretty doing good right now on my YouTube channel, so I want you to click right here, or check the link in the description box to go watch that video. That's the only video you would need to watch regarding the Next Generation NCLEX, learning and knowing everything that you need to know about this new exam. But in today's video, we're gonna move away from getting to know NGN. Rather, we're gonna talk about how to pass NGN on your first try, how to prep yourself, how to study better, what to do on test day, and things of that nature. So if this is the video that you're interested in, I'm pretty sure you're interested in this is why you are pretty much watching right now. So without further ado, let's just get started. The one thing I want to talk about first is how to prep for the Next Generation NCLEX. So part of your prepping is kind of understanding the basics of NCLEX. You know what I mean? So I kind of want to touch base on NCLEX basics, knowing your key phases, like the things that you would see on the exam, knowing them, recognizing those phases, and understanding what they mean, as well as strategies to answering your questions and a whole lot more. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. So what is NCLEX basics? NCLEX basics literally mean what does NCLEX entails? Like the thing that you should know, even if you're currently in pre-nursing. And the first thing I want you to know that is questions are written to test your knowledge, skills, and abilities essential to provide safe client care. Honestly, like I said in my last video, if you watch it, all NCLEX is a safety exam. They're not testing you about things you should have known as an ICU nurse, because guess what? You're not even a nurse yet, right? You're prepping to become a nurse, right? So what NCLEX questions are all about, it is written to test your knowledge, your skills, and your ability to essentially provide safe care. So whenever you're answering your question, keep that in mind. How am I providing the safest care in this scenario? Another thing that I want you to know is clinical judgment. So if you watched my last video, I dove into the new additional thing to the Next Generation NCLEX, right? So you guys know we have the traditional NCLEX, which is the NCLEX that people like us took. That makes me feel old, but I'm not old. I'm just a young girl. And the new thing added to that traditional NCLEX, which you can watch that video to understand a little better, is the clinical judgment. So the clinical judgment piece, why they added that onto the new NCLEX is because they want to reduce new nurse errors and improve new nurse clinical judgment, right? And with that, you would always have kind of like a patient record to help you answer your question. Other than NCLEX testing for safety, they also want to test your clinical judgment and clinical decision making skills. So whenever you're reading those questions and you have all the scenarios, you have all these patient record, think about what would I do in a clinical setting if I was to be a nurse in real life. Another thing I also want to touch base on is NCLEX reflect entry-level nurse knowledge. Like I said earlier on, they're not testing about what I should know, right? I am a seasoned nurse, so I know as much as a seasoned nurse should know. So whenever you're reading your question and the question is so complex or the answer options are so complex to the point where you're thinking, I wouldn't know this, that is probably not the right answer, or you know what I mean? Because everything you should know should be, everything you're tested on and everything you're required to know should be entry level. Another thing I want you to know is NCLEX do not test your reading level at all. It doesn't test your reading level, and it must be universally true. So whenever you're testing or the questions that you find on NCLEX, they are probably, this is one thing I talked about a lot on my TikTok, especially when people ask me, oh, can I use your book to study? And I'm thinking, nursing content is universal. So is NCLEX. NCLEX a universal true question. Okay, so take for example, you're an extern or you have an internship program in a hospital and they tell you, hey, transfuse potassium whenever the potassium gets to 3.8, right? This is just me citing an example, right? Now, universally, normal potassium is 3.5 to 4.0. So when you get on your test, when you get on your exam, regardless of the things that you're used to, whether that is your workplace or your externship, hospital facility, protocol, or, policy, right? You need to base your answer, your question off of a universal true content. Your question needs to be based off of anything that is universally true. Another thing I also want you to know is that NCLEX is free of gender, age, or racial bias. So say you have a question and because the person is a lady, they're 21 years old, that doesn't mean they will take priority compared to a man who is 76 years old, okay? I do have a friend that came to my house recently and she's about to take the NCLEX and she was just talking about, oh, I know that regardless of what the questions say, I should always prioritize kids. And I said, what do you mean? Who told you that? A 1-year-old that is fussing or probably recovering from some sort of, take for example, a 1-year-old that break a leg, right? And an 85-year-old with signs and symptoms of a heart attack. Now, breaking a leg is horrible, especially for a 1-year-old. But I'm sorry to tell you, you have to prioritize that 85-year-old in this situation because the situation means they could any moment from now. Does that make sense? So NCLEX questions are always free of gender, age, and race bias. Read your question through and through and kind of decide, what the best answer would be in that situation. Another thing I also want you to know is your key phrases on your NCLEX exam. So I'm going to be reading through my iPad because it is a lot and I do want you to get all the nugget that I have for you today. You always want to know which statement reflects the need for more teaching. Now, you guys know this. I mean, if you've done NCLEX practice question, you always get question regarding, which of these options reflect that the patient understands the teaching. Or they might not even put it literally like that. They might just give you like a question and saying that you've done teaching and the answer options would reflect if the person understood the teaching or not. But it wouldn't be understand or not. It would be in a scenario setting, right? Take for example, you have told a mother of a 3-year-old that, you're going on with an antibiotic, use your antibiotic as prescribed, whatever, and then you have an answer option that says the parent or the mother to the child that said, I'm gonna stop the antibiotic once, my child feels better. I'm pretty sure you guys know this is just like a question I'm pulling out of my ASS. But you guys get the gist. Like that question right there reflect that the patient does not understand the teaching. So most of your NCLEX question will be, in that, because again, like I said, NCLEX is a safety question. They want to make sure that you know the basics for an entry-level nurse. And one of the things that you need to know is understand how to teach and also know when your teachings are, being effective. So you want to recognize which statement reflects more teaching and which statement is false. Another thing you also want to know is which statement indicate that teaching has been effective. Very, very important, which essentially means which statement is true. Another thing I also want to note is which client should the nurse see first. You guys know what this means. Essentially, this means which client is the sickest. Just like the example I gave you guys a while ago, not a while, like a few seconds ago, the 85-year-old with signs and symptoms of, cardiac arrest and a 2-year-old that just broke their leg. Yeah, it is wild. It is painful to break a leg, but a 2-year-old with a broken bone is not the sickest in that situation. So you always want to know which patient to see first in scenarios that has those type of question, which essentially means which patient is the sickest. Another thing that I also want to watch out for on your questions is which result requires attention, which result is abnormal. And the good thing about the next generation NCLEX is your lab values are going to be given to you on the NCLEX. So you don't have to cram, all these lab values that we had to do. So your lab values are going to be created. So when you're looking at these lab values, or you're looking at your city interpretation or what have you, you want to kind of like understand which result is abnormal. That way it could help you decide on what's the best option in the answer option. Now, let's talk about strategies for answering questions on the NCLEX. And I think this is very, very important because regardless of how much you study, again, we're going to talk about study resources, okay? Don't be jumping the gun. But I do want to say, regardless of how much you study, regardless of how much practice question website you subscribe to, I have to know the right strategies to answer your question. Again, one of the things that I said on here is you want to focus your answer options on what would you do as an an entry-level nurse. I don't know if I said that right the first time, so I'm going to repeat it. So my number one strategy for answering question on the NCLEX will be focus your answer option on what you would do as an entry-level nurse. NCLEX is testing for what you would do as an entry-level nurse. You want to make sure that your answer options is alluding to that fact. The next thing that you want to keep in mind for strategies for answering your NCLEX question is key is safety. Safety, clinical judgment, and nursing practice. You always have to keep in mind the decision that I'm making, the answer option that I'm suggesting, or the answer option that I'm selecting, does this reflect safety? Okay, another strategy to answering your NCLEX question will be recognizing that clinical judgment will always have patient history, medical record, and those will be provided, right? So whenever you want to make a clinical judgment decision, or you have a question, which could be a standalone clinical judgment question or a case study clinical judgment question. Again, if you guys are not familiar, you do not understand what I mean by standalone clinical judgment question or case study, make sure you watch my last video on the NCLEX, okay? Just know that whenever you get clinical judgment questions, those questions will have patient history, medical record, and those will guide you in selecting your right answer. Another thing that I want to tell you regarding, your strategy for answering NCLEX question is you want to read the question and find the stem. So what that means is you're reading your question through and through. I know that a lot of people don't even read their question thoroughly. They go, and I've seen a video where someone said, if you're testing for the NCLEX, I think you just focus on the first sentence and the last sentence. And I'm thinking, you better be careful the people that you take advice from. Now, that might work for them. They might be lucky to get text questions that will allow them to pass by just reading the first sentence and the last sentence. But why would anybody go on an exam thinking, let me just read the first 3 words and the last 3 words and then read my answer option and voila, I would have the right answer. Please do not do that to yourself. I promise you that will do you no good. You might get through with that, you might get by with that, but please do not make that your routine to testing and answering questions. My best advice for you is read your question thoroughly. I mean, you have 5 hours, right? So read your questions, take your time, find the stem, find exactly what the question is answering you, and then read your answer options to help you answer the question. Again, when you're reading your question, you want to keep in mind, do you recognize this topic? Another strategy, if you do not recognize the topic, now you have to apply general knowledge, okay? If you watch my last NCLEX video, I talked about how about 15 of the questions on your Next Generation NCLEX within the first 85 questions are going to be non-graded, right? So again, if you do not recognize the topic, that might be one of your non-graded questions, but you don't want to kind of like guess, right? You can tell it might be an actual question and it might be just like your 15 non-graded questions. But most importantly, if you read the question and you have no idea what the topic is, and when I tell you, whenever I took my NCLEX, yes, there were questions where I was thinking, what is this? I've never seen anything like this, or I've seen something like this, but I didn't think this was important, right? Apply general knowledge in that situation. Read the answer options and apply general knowledge. And I'm pretty sure you know what that means. The next strategy for answering your question will be look for keywords in your options. Keywords like highest priority, most likely, do first, do next, things like that. Look for those keywords in your question, and that should guide you with answering your questions. Because I'll tell you what, when people tell you all the options on your NCLEX are right, or all your options on your nursing school exams are right, yes, they are right. But they are right for different scenarios, right? You have a question and all the options seem like the right thing to do. But A might be the right thing to do next. B might be the right thing to do first. C might be the right thing to do last, okay? So yes, all the options might be right, but might not be right for the question that you're being asked. So make sure you're looking for and also just recognizing those keywords in your question. Another strategy is you want to base your answer on your textbook, right? Best practices. Like I said, you're a new nurse grad. Even though you might have done externship and things are done a certain way in the hospital, I can't give an example right now, but I've seen things where we're taught to do things different in the hospital. In school, like in your nursing school, and then you get to the hospital, it's done a different way. Remember, do not mix up. And even some of you guys might have actually gotten your first nursing job before taking your NCLEX. Please, 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 please base your answer on best practices, which essentially means on your textbook. Do not come out here on NCLEX and start thinking, oh, my doctor said, oh, my charge nurse said, oh, my nurse preceptor said. Please, textbook, textbook, textbook. Also, I want you to treat your answer options as true and false. Sometimes when I read my question and I'm torn between two best answer, I read it and I go, is this a true statement or is this a false statement regarding to this question? Again, another strategy to help you answer your question is treat your answer option, especially when you're stuck between two most correct as true and false question. Again, I want you to read all your options and then use the elimination process to kind of eliminate the ones that are most unlikely to be the answers. You always know. I feel like for every nursing question, we always end up with two most correct answers, right? So read all your answer options. Just don't go A, B, C, D. Okay, it's going to be B and D. Read, okay? Also, options with absolute and extreme words like always, never, everyone, options that basically has no wiggle room, they are always wrong. Always wrong, okay? So you want to do away from options like that, like always, never, everyone. Those options are no for you. Also, whenever you're answering your option, always know that acute condition takes priority over chronic condition, right? Take, for example, someone that came to the hospital with a history of chronic kidney disease and they're on dialysis and now they have fluid volume overload, right? Yes, there's a lot going on, but that's a situation that came about due to a chronic disease, right? So you want to make sure that in such answer option, if you have an option that's alluding to acute condition, you want to prioritize the acute condition in that situation. So acute would always take priority over chronic diseases. Also, I want you to think broadly whenever you're reading your question. Don't just think like in a box. Think broadly, as well as avoid guessing, especially with the new SAT scoring format. I discussed that in my last NCLEX video. The best bet for you is always avoid guessing. Do not guess. Always go with the best options that you know will be the correct answer in that situation. And if you have absolutely no idea of what the answer will be, like I said, use general principle, but do not guess. Two more tips and then we're gonna move on. I want to tell you something, and this is something that I learned during my webinar, is that people that failed the NCLEX, they did like a whole survey and look back at what people were failing the most, and they are determined that people fail fundamental and pharmacology the most on NCLEX. Why? Those are like the first classes that was taken in nursing school. A lot of people have forgotten about them, right? They can't even remember a thing. So whenever you're studying, right, make sure that you go back to your pharmacology notes or your fundamental note or get a study guide like mine, the Ultimate Nursing School Study Guide. We're going to talk about that in a little bit and help yourself refresh your memory on pharmacology, learning the mechanism of action, the side effect of those medications, the contraindication of those medications, especially on your mental health, okay, mental health medication, mental health disorder medication, very important, as well as fundamental. But that's all the strategies that I have for answering your questions on the Next Generation NCLEX. And now we're gonna move on to how to study, right? Now that you have all this strategy to help you pass, you have all of that good stuff. Now, how do you study? I might be losing lighting a little bit, but it's getting darker. So we're just gonna rock and roll. I don't think the lighting will stop the show because we have a great video. So we're not gonna allow the lighting to stop our show. Okay, now how do you study for NCLEX? Now this is what I'm gonna tell you. Studying for NCLEX kind of has to be different for how you study for nursing school exams. Now I said that because NCLEX is a comprehensive test, right? It's testing you on everything that you've done from your patho, even sometimes anatomy, right? Because you do have to remember that part in some cases until your semester 3, which some school would call critical care. So when you study, my first and most important tip is do not overwhelm yourself. I know there's a million and one resources out there. Trust me when I say, whenever I was preparing for NCLEX, my school provided us with Earth Review. I did my K video, audio, I used Kaplan, I use U-Word, and most importantly, I use my nursing school note, which I already made into a study guide. I want to show you guys in a little bit. So there are tons of resources out there. But the most important thing that I want you to know is you have to study first and then do a practice question. Now, before we get into studying, I want to give you tips on how to plan a good and effective study schedule for NCLEX. Now, you guys know with nursing school exam, you have date, you have time. You kind of have something to keep you accountable. If you're not studying for that exam, you're probably prepping to go for clinicals. So you're always on your toes, like you always have something doing. But with NCLEX, you already graduated. Now everything is on your time. You can wake up at any time. So it is important to keep the same discipline and follow a very meticulous and a very great study schedule. Okay, I know nursing school is tiring, but please, if you can just do this one last thing for yourself to pass the NCLEX and skate through into the nursing world, you're done until you're deciding, okay, I want to advance my education. Right? But this is the last leg with regarding getting your degree as a registered nurse, right? Or you already got your degree, but becoming a registered nurse, so to speak. So the first I want to talk about, and the first tip I want to give to you, is how to plan a good study schedule. Now, for me, whenever I was trying to plan a study schedule, the most important thing for me was I wanted to study and also do practice question. I knew people that did just practice question and they went into NCLEX with so much fear because they knew they were meant to study a little bit. They knew they had struggles in some of their classes in nursing school, but they just, you know how people just push away their problems and like, well, it is whatever. Everybody says to do practice question. I don't want that to be you, because guess what? With the next generation NCLEX, if you do not study, you may not pass. So traditional NCLEX, maybe you might do practice question and then, figure your way out and then, scale through, which is why they changed the NCLEX. You have to study. So here's my strategy for you. Whenever you pick your NCLEX date, I always advise people, please take 2 weeks to at least 5 to 6 weeks to study. If you want to take your NCLEX, boom, right after nursing school. I mean, I've seen people take it as early as a week. I've seen people take it as early as 2 weeks. Some fail, some pass. But for me, a good rule of thumb for me, I'm not gonna lie to you, if I'm being honest, will be 3 to 6 weeks. I would never think prepping for NCLEX is a waste of time, because I would rather take my time to prep and pass on my first try than rush my way through it and fail and then have to do it again. So here's what I want you to do. You're probably used to a planner at this point in time because you've been in nursing school and you've been using planner all your semester. So get you a planner and then figure out, number one, which of the classes or your courses in nursing school did you struggle with the most? For me, the answer was a no-brainer. It was mental health, right? So for me, I give myself, now this is what I did. You don't have to do this. I think I took too long to study for NCLEX, and I'm gonna be honest, but I took 6 weeks, which for me personally, with the level of knowledge that I have and with the fact that I did pretty well in nursing school, I feel like six weeks was too much, because around the 4th week, I was ready. I knew within myself that I was ready. But again, I'm thankful to God that I gave myself 6 weeks, because that made me even study a whole lot more, right? Okay, so let's do this. For me, it was mental health. I'm not trying to study the entire mental health curriculum. What I'm trying to do is do a revision of mental health curriculum or mental health course in nursing school. And what I did with that is I didn't struggle with the entire mental health curriculum. It was some part of mental health that I struggled with. So I told myself, I'm going to take the first 1 to 5 days of studying to focus on mental health. And what I would do is I would study mental health during the day and do practice question during the night. Now, for most of your practice question website, they probably have up to 2,500 practice questions. So here's what I like to do. I like to tell my mentees, how about give yourself a goal of doing 100 practice questions every day? Now, to some people, that's so little. Nope, it is not. Not when you are studying the rationale, because you're not just doing practice questions to test your ability. Remember, this is NCLEX. This is a nursing school exam. So when you're doing this practice question, you want to make sure that you're also reading your rationale and then using your rationale to go back to your notes to study a little bit more about it. Because if you have, say you have a question, a practice question on pancreatic cancer or on, say, heart failure, and I don't know, you got it right, you got it wrong, I would take the opportunity and make a note to myself and say, hey, go back to my nursing note or go to my study guide or go to my textbook. Hopefully you find it in your textbook. Hopefully you find it easier and early in your textbook and go study heart failure. Because for me to have gotten this question or this practice question, I mean, you would know if you're pretty confident about heart failure or if you're like, no, not right there. For me to get this question and I'm now so confident about it, I need to study it. So that's why I always tell my student, study during the day, right? Kind of depends on your schedule. But for me, I will study, then do practice question. I do not buy the idea of doing only practice question without studying, because how do you test your knowledge? How do you test your understanding? How do you test that you understand your content without practice questions? So again, a good rule of thumb is whatever practice question amount that you subscribe to, say 2,000 or 2,500, give yourself a goal of doing about 100 practice questions daily. So that way you can complete all the practice questions there is on whatever platform you subscribe to. And with this, I also want you to do study time. Have a good study time, right? So for me, like I said, the first 5 days, what I did was I would study the mental health, the places that I struggle with the most, and then I would do practice questions solely on mental health. Now, on my second week, again, I felt like mental health was the only class that I struggled with in nursing school, which is why I said on my fourth week, I felt like I was ready. On my second week, then I decided to go back to the basics and do fundamentals. Because like I said, these are classes that I knew at that point in time I'd forgotten about because I've taken them way, a while back. So I went to fundamental. I did fundamental and pharmacology my second week, and they did practice question based off of fundamental and pharmacology. On my third week, I started to randomize my practice question, and during the daytime, I would just get my nursing school note and maybe pick something off of maternity and go, let me just flip through all my maternity notes, right? I'm flipping through, I'm reading through. If I have a recollection of, the content, that means I still remember, that means I still have a good understanding of it. I flip through and I move forward. I flip through and move forward. If I'm flipping through and I have no recollection, I'm like, okay, I need to pause a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. I need to pause a little bit and I need to study this a little bit more because I have no recollection of what this is, right? So this is how I studied and did the practice question. So my advice for you is, regardless of what you want to do for NCLEX, I want you to give yourself a goal of, I'm going to complete at least 100 practice questions a day. I know it might seem small, but like I said, when you're doing this practice question, read your rationale. And if you have 100% confidence in that topic, right? Take, for example, the question was the probable signs for pregnancy, right? Obviously, they won't ask you what are the probable signs of pregnancy. It might be in a scenario setting, but essentially, what the topic of the question is the probable sign of pregnancy, right? And probably it's a selector that apply, and you got maybe 2 questions wrong, or you got 1 option right, or you got 2 options wrong, or you got only 1 option right. I will flip through my nursing school note or get my, study guide and then go to the signs of pregnancy and kind of dive deep into the presumptive sign, the probable sign, and the actual signs of pregnancy, right? That way you're not being caught off guard on the NCLEX. Does that make sense to you? So next thing we're going to talk about, which is what I think you guys have been waiting for, is what should I study with? Sugar, okay, you've given me all this tips. What would you advise me to use to study? Like I said, with the Next Generation NCLEX, studying is important. I would even say it is 50-50 as important as doing practice questions, because you want to get yourself familiarized with the new question format, the old new shebang of things. So the first thing I recommend for you to study with is the Ultimate Nursing School Study Guide by yours truly, Sugar. This is a study guide that I created. It took me 2 years. I'm going to show you right here to create. Again, this might be new on YouTube, but this is a study guide that has taken the nursing world by storm, especially on TikTok and Instagram. Now, we've had people give their honest reviews of the study guide about passing the NCLEX PN and passing the NCLEX RN. This is made for RN program, but I've seen people use it for NCLEX PN and pass. This has all your nursing school core courses in them. All your nursing school core courses are in here, ranging from fundamentals to health assessment, to pharmacology, to mental health, pediatrics, maternity, method 1 and 2, critical care, and what have you. It is a 400-page, meticulously created study guide. But again, if this is not something you're interested in, get you some sort of study guide, right? Or maybe your own personal nursing school study note, if you still have them. You can also use this Sanders textbook. I would swear by Sanders textbook. Not only does it have a very straight to the point content, they also have strategies on how to study for the NCLEX. The good thing about the Sanders textbook, which is spelled, by the way, SAUNDER textbook, is not only is it a good study guide, it does also have practice questions. Now, just this practice question to prep for the NCLEX, absolutely not. I would just use it as an additional resource to whatever else that I have. Okay, now let's talk about your practice question website. I'm pretty sure you're thinking, Sugar, would you recommend Archer or YouWord or what have you? Now, I'll tell you what, when I took the NCLEX, I have to be honest with you guys, I really do think, for me at that point in time, Kaplan mirrors NCLEX question strategy, question type. Kaplan mirrors that a whole lot more than you would for me. And I have that video on my YouTube channel where I kind of like spoke my truth about the NCLEX, and the video went viral because, again, why do I have to lie? I don't have to lie to nobody. That was my true honest opinion. I really felt like you what was at that point in time unnecessarily complex. I just couldn't figure out, especially when I took the NCLEX and the NCLEX wasn't as complex, I couldn't figure out why you would make that practice question so complex. But again, I started to realize maybe because people need to be on their toe or sitting on the edge for NCLEX, they kind of make it look that way. That way you think of NCLEX as a complex exam and then you study more. But it kind of depends. That kind of, I think it really depends on your kind of person. I would rather get a practice question that kind of simulate the NCLEX itself rather than get something that makes me think of NCLEX as a complex exam, and as a result I'm scared of taking the exam. Now that was at that time Kaplan really worked for me, and then I used UWorld as well because everybody said to use it. Again, like I said, it made me think of NCLEX as a complex exam. Maybe that helped me study better, but I would say not so much with answering my question on the NCLEX exam. Now, one practice question website that everybody has kind of talked about, people that actually use my book, especially on TikTok, also talked about would be Archer. I think it's by Archer. There's a viral video on TikTok right now made by this amazing TikTok creator called T.I. She used my book and Archer to study for the NCLEX, and she passed on the first try. She made this video that went viral. People started tagging me in that video. I was so scared. I didn't want to watch it because I didn't know what was going on. And then I watched it and it was all good news. I was so happy. Even my mentees, right, that don't have TikTok or Instagram do swear by Archer. So I would say until I have a first-hand experience with Archer, I would go by what tens and hundreds of people are saying, that Archer is a good practice question website for NCLEX, and I would say give it a try. I'm pretty sure they have a trial period. Give it a try and see if it's something that you would like to invest in. Now that we've talked about your study tips, your study resources and all of that, can we talk about your test day? Because I feel like that's one part that we sometimes forget about, right? If you watch my last video, I talked about how I allow negative thinking and negative thoughts to literally affect me on my NCLEX test day. And this is where I come in for you. On your NCLEX test day, the first thing I want you to do, whenever you're booking your NCLEX, I want you to schedule yourself to start. I think everybody has to go in the morning. I can't remember, but I went in the morning. But if you have to pick a time that best work for you. If you like testing in the morning time, pick morning. If you like testing kind of like nighttime, or no nighttime, like evening time, noon, pick that same time. I want you to remember that this test is the greatest test ever for you. This is like the exam that you need to become a registered nurse. It's a big deal, right? So when you're selecting your time, please pick a time that works best for you. Now, after doing that, what you want to do on your test day, you want to wake up as early as possible before your exam, and please find something to eat. Like I said, NCLEX is a 5-hour exam. I talked about NCLEX study plan in my last NCLEX video. Make sure you watch it. It's a 5-hour exam. And one thing about me is sugar. When I'm hungry, I'm cranky. When I'm hungry, I'm cranky AF. And I have a lot of attitude. So what I wouldn't want for you to experience is get hungry in the middle of your exam. Okay, so even if it's just oatmeal, banana, whatever it is, something light, something that wouldn't turn your stomach and make you start going to the bathroom from number 2. Okay, hydrate yourself, drink water. Another tip that I forgot to mention is go to your test center a day prior to your exam. Scout the location. Find out what parking is like. Imagine your test exam is at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you get there at 7:30 and you can't find parking. Now you're scared, you're fidgeting. Because sometimes when you get scared and you have anxiety, you forget everything you've learned for the past freaking 4 or 5 years, right? Go to your test center a day prior to your test. Scout the location. If you can even work in and see what's going on and be like, hey, I'm testing here tomorrow. I just want to know, is there anything you'd like me to come with? You know what I mean? Failure to prep to fail. Right now, after you've eaten, I want you to wear layers. What that means is if you're wearing kind of like a top like this, I want you to have a jacket. Whenever I was testing for NCLEX, I saw people literally sweating through their hoodie, but I was so fortunate I had a jacket on. So whenever I started to get hot, because it was hot and steaming there, because the questions was coming in fast and hot, all I had to do was take off my jacket. And guess what? If it was cold, I still had my jacket. So layer up. So when you get cold, you can have your layer, right? And if you get hot, you can take it off. That way you're comfortable. Also, pro tip, you want to appear the same way you look on your ID. Oh, I guess this has to be one of the reasons why I had I wouldn't say the word because I did pass on my first try, but my NCLEX test day was, I had a scarf on to my NCLEX. Now, you guys know, as a black woman, if you don't have extensions in, if you don't have wigs in, if you don't have braids in, sometimes our natural hair is so short and we can't even put it in the bun. And because that was my situation on that day, I just went in, I tied like a little scarf, and tell me why they had me take this scarf off. And my head was not looking good. My head, I'm not even saying my hair. My head, it looks like I just went through a World War III because my hair was rough. Like I thought, well, I have my scarf on. I'm from Nigeria and I know, and my mom is a Muslim, which, you know, sometimes they wear scarf, they wear like hijab. If you have that on your ID, it will be okay for you to wear a scarf or an hijab on your NCLEX. But if you do not have a scarf or an hijab in the picture on your ID, you will be asked to take it off, okay? Because I kind of lied. I was like, well, I'm a Muslim, you know. Oh, I said I was a Christian. Obviously, I'm a Christian because they see my middle name is Mary. And I'm a Christian, you know, and it's religious. And they said, well, you don't have it on your ID. If your picture on your ID, you have your head kind of like open without the scarf. Like, what's the difference today? Long story short, they asked me to take off my scarf. And I went in there with my raggedy looking head. So make sure that you look exactly the way you look on your ID. Not look exactly, but you get what I mean. Lastly, believe in yourself. Baby girl, boy, I want you to believe in yourself. Look at me when I say you've done all the work to get here. Let me remind you of something. You applied into pre-nursing, you got in. Passed your AMP, passed your microbiology, your chemistry, your sociology, right? Your college algebra, you know. And then you had to take the SC, or maybe it was TEAS. And then you passed. And then you applied to nursing school. And then you did pathophysiology, you did pharm, fundamentals, mental health, message 1, 2, and 3, pediatrics, community, maternity, EBP, management, and you freaking passed all that. So what makes you think NCLEX is too complex for you to pass? So believe me when I say you've done all the work, you're more than smart enough to pass the NCLEX. So keep up the faith, be positive, tell yourself, I have about 150 questions on this exam, and if I do get up to 150 questions, glory to God. If I got stopped on 85, glory to God. But what I do know is regardless of how many questions I get, I'm going to pass on my first try. I'm going to pass today, right? Or whenever you check your result, and I'll become a registered nurse. That's gonna be the end of my video, guys. If you have any more video suggestions, make sure to leave it in the comment section below. I would love to make videos that are relating or alluding to whatever your requests are. So if you have a video request, leave it in the comment section below. Stay inspired, stay motivated. I wish you guys all the best on your NCLEX. And if you're looking to getting the Ultimate Nursing Skills Study Guide, I would say check the website on your screen right now. We might be on pre-order and we might have it in stock. Whatever it is, make sure you get your hands on it. I wish you all the best on your exam, and I can't wait for you to become a part of the RN or nurse gang. I love you, and I will see you guys next time on My Life as Sugar. Bye, y'all.